The foundation of federalism, a balancing act. America, land of the free, home of the complicated power-sharing agreement. That's federalism in a nutshell. It's the delicate dance between a strong national government and semi-independent states. Think of it like a layered cake. The feds are the top layer, setting the overall flavor. States are the middle layer, adding their own unique twist. And local governments, they're the frosting, the part that touches the people directly. The system enshrined in the Constitution is all about balance. It prevents any one level of government from having too much power. But what happens when you mess with that balance? Well, what if you start cutting out layers of the cake? That's where things get really interesting. So we're talking about letting local governments bypass state governments for resources. Sounds simple, right? Cut out the middlemen, streamline the process. But hold on, this isn't just about paperwork, it's about power. And in the game of government, power is a zero-sum game. States have historically played a crucial role in distributing federal funds. They act as a buffer, ensuring resources are allocated fairly and efficiently. They know their local communities best. They can tailor funding to specific needs.
But with this new setup, states are sidelined. They lose control over a significant portion of their traditional authority. Imagine a state trying to implement a statewide education initiative. Suddenly, individual cities and towns are negotiating their own deals with the federal government. Chaos, confusion, a recipe for disaster. This isn't just a hypothetical situation. This is about the very fabric of our nation. It's about the delicate balance of power that keeps our government in check, and right now that balance is teetering on the brink.
With states cut out of the resource loop, a dangerous void emerges. Their ability to govern effectively is severely hampered. They become less like managers and more like spectators.
And as state authority weakens, so too does their fiscal capacity. States rely on a mix of federal funds and their own revenue generation to fund essential services. Take away a significant chunk of that funding, and the consequences are dire. Think education cuts, infrastructure crumbles, and social services stretched thin.
This creates a domino effect. Weakened states lead to a power vacuum, and you know what they say about nature abhorring a vacuum? Something will always rush in to fill it. In this case, it's the federal government.
And there you have it, folks, the erosion of state authority. Is it a power vacuum or a power grab? Section 4. Constitutional clash, navigating the legal labyrinth. Now, before the federal government starts measuring drapes for their new State House offices, there's a little document we need to consult, the Constitution. This bedrock of American governance clearly outlines the powers of both federal and state governments.
Direct resource sharing between the feds and localities could be construed as a violation of the 10th Amendment. This amendment reserves certain powers to the states, including those not explicitly granted to the federal government.
The Supremacy Clause is another potential battleground. This clause establishes federal law as the supreme law of the land. But how far does this supremacy extend? Can the federal government use its financial muscle to coerce local governments into compliance with its agenda, bypassing state authority? This question would undoubtedly end up in the Supreme Court, sparking a legal showdown for the ages. Section 5. The rise of federal dominance, a centralized future. Let's say, for argument's sake, that the legal hurdles are cleared. What happens then? The likely outcome is a dramatic shift in the balance of power towards the federal government. This newfound dominance would have far-reaching implications.
With the power of the purse strings firmly in hand, the federal government could exert unprecedented control over local policies. Imagine a scenario where federal funding for infrastructure projects comes with strings attached. Local governments might be forced to adopt certain environmental regulations or labor practices to qualify. While some might argue this promotes national unity and consistency, others see it as a blatant power grab. The Founding Fathers, wary of centralized power, would be spinning in their graves. The very system they designed to prevent tyranny could be used to erode the autonomy of states and, by extension, the American people.
Section 6 of the intergovernmental relations in flux, cooperation or conflict. Remember that delicate dance between different levels of government? Well, direct resource sharing could turn that dance into a full-blown mosh pit. With states sidelined, the traditional channels of communication and collaboration would be disrupted.
Local governments, accustomed to working through their respective states, would now have to navigate the labyrinthine bureaucracy of federal agencies. This could lead to confusion, duplication of effort, and a breakdown in communication.
Imagine a scenario where a natural disaster strikes. Local governments, desperate for federal aid, find themselves competing with each other for limited resources, while state governments are left powerless to coordinate a cohesive response. The potential for conflict is also high. States, feeling increasingly marginalized, might resist federal directives or even file lawsuits challenging the constitutionality of direct resource sharing. This could lead to a protracted legal battle, further straining intergovernmental relations and paralyzing effective governance.